All right, and welcome to the show. This is the Weekly Jargon, and I am Jose Rodriguez.
And Rohi Zachariah.
I'm Paul Herrick.
And Abel will be joining us in a bit here. Today we have Paul Herrick from Bolt Wealth Management, and he's going to give us a little bit of details on what exactly is a financial planner. So we're going to start off asking him some questions as to why financial planning is a good thing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paul. Paul, give us a quick bio of who you are and why you chose to become a financial planner.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me, Jose and guys. And so my name is Paul Herrick, and I'm with Bolt Wealth Management. And this is my career as a financial advisor was kind of a second career. I started out of Fresno State as went to school to be a teacher, and was a high school teacher for a couple years at Central Unified. And the teaching was kind of what I thought I was going to be doing, and did that for a couple years. But it was in the period of time during the great financial crisis. We had a lot of up and down times in the economy, and there was a period of time where they were laying off teachers. And as a young teacher, that's kind of the system you get. Kind of the lesser tenured teachers get laid off, and I was in this kind of yo-yo situation back and forth with my school district, and at some point it just got too uncertain. So I decided to look for a different type of vocation, and had a family friend who got me into the business of financial planning and advising, and did that with a large global company that has an office out of Fresno, and it was an insurance company. So kind of the foundation I've got for doing any type of financial advising started in the insurance business, and from there I kind of added on the wealth management piece, and I've been in business for the last 12 years. About 5 years ago, me and another guy met up. We kind of saw the light bulb went on how this business should be done, or how we felt it should be done, and that's when we decided to come up with Bolt Wealth Management, which it's our own company. We're me and my partner, his name's Brian Traverso. We're founding partners of the firm, and we've got one other advisor under us, and we've got an assistant. So there's four of us, and that's what we're doing.
And all stem from being a teacher, huh?
Yeah, it did. And what I found was kind of having a knack for teaching people was real helpful, and trying to help people figure out their finances, their financial planning. Most of what we do with people is just teaching them. It's trying to break down the complicated into simple terms so that they can understand. So I don't know that I really chose to be a financial advisor. I think
The path
it kind of chose
you.
me, and
Yeah.
and I oftentimes tell people I was too dumb and naive to understand I probably shouldn't do it. So I just kept going at it and kept improving at it. And my big thing when I started was I told myself, if I can get a little bit better at this every year, if I can grow my business just a little bit every year, as long as I saw growth and potential in the business for myself and my family, then I would stay doing it. And so far, it's been one of the better decisions that I've made. So,
And before we get asking you these questions that we have for you, what subject were you teaching, if you don't mind?
oh yeah. Well, I came out of Fresno State as a history major. So history was kind of a passion of mine. So I taught just about everything in the social science world. So U.S. history, world history, taught geography, taught economics. And I taught all in high school. So 9th grade to 12th grade, I've taught them all.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll start off with the interview and ask you a couple of questions here. Rohi, do you want to start us off there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I guess what would be the role of an advisor? I mean, why would somebody seek you out?
That's a good question. So I think a lot of people have a lot of different ideas about what an advisor is. What I would say is that there's a couple key things that people should be looking for as in terms of a financial advisor. I think that our role is to help people determine their financial goals, help figure those things out, define what those goals are, and then help them build out a pathway towards those goals. And I think then the last step, I really think it's the most important, is to really stick with them on that path, is to help them maintain the path. Because if the financial goal is retirement, and that's not what it is for everybody, but that's what it is for a lot of people, there's a lot of things that happen in our lives between when we start planning and retirement. So that's where I think an advisor really shows their value, is that they're able to kind of stick with people through job changes, through building families. Unfortunately, from people get divorced, you break up families, buying and selling homes. I mean, there's all kinds of things that come into play for people as they're trying to reach their financial goals. So that's what I think is kind of a broad role for a financial planner.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that in the show here, Paul, we're always trying to provide content that is relevant to what's taking place in today's environment, right? We hear about the inflationary environment. We hear about these banks going on runs, and I think it's somewhat it makes it uncertain for people. Do you want to trust financial institutions? So, in your opinion, how many Americans utilize a financial planner, and if what are the common reasons people would skip on financial management?
Well, I did a little digging on this. Apparently, there's about 240,000 financial advisors in America, and so that I crunched the math. For financial advisors, you need to keep the math fairly simple, but there's about one advisor for every 1,400 Americans. And I'll tell you right now, I don't have 1,400 clients, so I really think that the use of a financial advisor is really low. And that's unfortunate, because I really do think that people can really benefit greatly from having a financial planner that they consult with or meet with, or are able to ask questions about, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think it's underutilized, and that could certainly improve.
Now, as far as the, I'm sure you have a great capture rate when it comes to talking to people and having them come in to do some financial management. But what are the common reasons, or what is it about, or what myths exist out there of why people don't want to use a financial advisor? What is it an income deal? Is it the threshold that they have to have? Is it the disposable income? Why wouldn't people consider a financial manager or financial advisor?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons. I think one, their perception is that it costs a lot of money to meet with a financial planner. I don't think that's true. Financial advisors are just like any other people. They're not driving, Bentleys around town. They're working people just like anybody else. So I don't think and they know their market. I mean, most financial advisors, they're trying to work with the people in their community, I believe. And so they're going to be reasonable priced, and they're not going to have a lot of barriers, I think, to talking to those people. And then another reason too is, I think people, maybe their perception is that you have to be wealthy to work with a financial planner. And unfortunately, we see some of that in our industry. Some advisors do put on like minimum account levels to work with them. I wish that wasn't the case, but it is kind of part of it. But a lot of advisors you can find out there, I don't think they don't have these wealth barriers for people, these expectations that people have to bring in a lot of money for them to work with it. So that's kind of how I would view it.
And before Rohi goes on to the third question here, I do want to just emphasize on the word wealth. I think to acquire wealth or to build wealth, you have to start somewhere, right? I mean, I don't think, with the exception, there are some folks that obviously have generational wealth, but I think people that want to build wealth or at some point consider saying, you know what, I just don't want to have cash, but also I want to own assets. I want to be able to see how I can gain some type of wealth for my future, for my kids and generations, right? And I think this is kind of the beginning of the conversation, is how you establish that foundation to be able to get there.
Right.
And like you said, it's not just for those that have it already, but those that want to consider building it and maybe at some point get to that level, right? So with that, Rohi, I think you
Yeah,
have,
I mean, you did mention retirement, so I mean, being that Jose and I are both young, earning men. I mean, at what age? I mean, is retirement even attainable? Is it something where, the planning advisor is is that a goal of most Americans is to just reach a retirement when they talk to you, or?
I think that's what a lot of people are focused on. Our society has kind of done a fairly good job of kind of crafting this idea that employment is going to be something that you really do from your early 20s till somewhere around, early 60s or mid 60s. The Social Security system has a lot to do with that. They kind of craft it so that there's a lot of incentives for you to really wind down your employment around mid to late 60s. But yeah, I would say there's definitely it's never too late to start. If you think about it, like once you retire, if you're invested in things like the stock market, the reality is your retirement should be probably about 25 to 35 years of living. So you still have to continue on with your financial plan even into retirement. So yeah, we don't ever tell people that it's too late. Now, if you don't get started early and you don't put in a lot more money than you think you need in the earlier working years, it's going to be a lot harder. You probably won't be able to create the lifestyle that you want for yourself in your retirement years, which is all the more reason why this needs to be an education piece for young people. Young people need to understand how the Social Security system just is not robust enough to really provide them with everything they're expecting. I looked up the numbers last night. We look these up often, and the average Social Security benefit payment for Americans is about $1,500 a month. I don't know about you, but I mean, that wouldn't even pay a lot of our mortgage bills. So to think that that's the thing that's going to take care of you in retirement, it's just not accurate. So there does have to be some extra work that you're doing and you're planning for.
And do you see when people come to talk to you, do you see them like shocked by those numbers, or do they kind of already have that in their mindset, or when they ask about retirement, do they kind of already know it's something they can't live off of already, or do you shock them a little?
I think it's always healthy to be shocked a little bit. That certainly motivates people.
Okay.
But it's not a lie. It's reality. I mean, this is what their expectations can be if they do nothing. Now, there's a lot of things people do that aren't necessarily putting into the stock market. I mean, it's a popular strategy to try to get rid of debt. I mean, that just improves your household cash flow, your budgeting. So there are things that people do that they do try to control that scenario. And I'd be a huge advocate of trying to secure your home, have that paid off by retirement. But, it's not something that has to happen, especially if you're doing that early on and often funding retirement accounts. If you're doing that, you're going to give yourself way more leniency and flexibility in the later years when you probably need it. When working is harder, when you're taking care of things like your aging parents, there's all kinds of reasons why life gets harder as we get older, closer to those older ages. So,
Okay.
so I mean, I know you touched on it, but in your opinion, on average, how much should an individual put aside for retirement? What is? I mean, I'm assuming there's different levels for everyone because you said it's the lifestyle. But on average, what would you say? I don't know, let's just throw someone that's just starting out in the workforce, maybe late 20s, early 30s. What would be something that you would suggest or you would recommend they start putting aside just to be able to live that healthy lifestyle as you mentioned earlier?
Well, we usually answer that in terms of percentages, because everybody's got a different income and depends too on how much like a spouse is working or not. We're trying to really push people to do about 10% as kind of a minimum. unfortunately, every once in a while we get people who say, well, I want to do like 3 or 4%. Well, okay, well, you're not being that serious about it, financial planning is really about building up a discipline and a commitment to a goal. There's a long-term goal. So we're really focused on trying to push people to do about 10% as like a minimum, all the way up to 20%. And that's not something that you just have to come up with in a day. Financial discipline is just like any other discipline. Take some time, take some practice. Especially if, and the older you get, I mean, the more the higher the percentage has to be of your income that you are putting away for that. But if we can get anybody to save within the 10 to 20% range, I think that's very healthy. And in fact, when I meet with people, I ask a lot of questions. We go through a lot of different information grabbers to try to figure out where they're at. But the most important to this day has been, how much can you save per month outside of your bills? If you pay for everything, what's left over? How much can you save? And when was the last time you touched that money? That already tells me what kind of financial disciplines you have. And those usually are the people, regardless whether or not they have money in accounts or they're starting from scratch, if they have that financial discipline, those are the people I want to work with, because I know that there's someone who likes the discipline and they can be taught how this works over time.
Got it. I see, I do taxes as well. I'm a certified tax preparer, but one thing that I do see over the W-2s, obviously, I see the amount that people put aside on their 401ks. And I think it's not so much of a discipline. I think it's just enrolling. And the fact that you enroll in the 401k, you don't get to see that money, right? Because it's already pre-tax dollars that go into an account. And I think people can get used to the idea versus, hey, I have it all here in my hands. I'm going to put 10% aside after I see it and it's been taxed. A lot of times people, they have a hard time disciplining that. And because sometimes it's tough, it depends on how much income they make. But I mean, assuming that they're needing every penny of that check, then it's really difficult for them to put any money aside versus, I've enrolled in a 401k. That's already deducted from me, just like other deductions, your federal income taxes, your state disability, what have you. But once you put that aside, I think you get conditioned, or at least you get the idea that, hey, I don't have to worry about that. That's going into this account. But a lot of times I don't see that.
Right.
I don't see that, and that's where I kind of worry about the future of folks, especially when Social Security is at the crosshairs here for a lot of folks in politics, looking to see about possibly not necessarily taking it away, but modifying it to a degree where, shoot, the average is 1,500, the average could be 1,000 or maybe less, and that certainly puts a burden on those folks receiving that fixed income. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, one of the big parts of our business is implementing 401k plans and other types of retirement plans for small businesses. And we do it, for one, my partner Brian's got a real specialty in it, so he really understands it well. But to your point, it is one of the best ways for people to save for retirement. And there's something about, if it's coming out of your paycheck and you don't quite have it in your hands where you have to make that decision, there's something about that is really helpful for people, that they can sign up at their enrollment period and say, look, I want to put away 6-7% of my pay. And two, it also is a big help that oftentimes you have an employer that's matching that contribution as well. And when people set that, they very rarely stop it. And our role in that is it kind of in a similar way. We meet with those participants in that 401k plan to try to say, hey, just do 1% more every year. Just pump it up just a little bit. And without even realizing it, they are saving that 10 to 20%. And you're totally right on where the government's kind of going with this. We get on government for a lot of things, but I've been in this business a while now, and what I've seen is that the retirement plan space is actually pretty well crafted in the tax code. And it really does have people respond to incentives, both employer and employee. And the movement right now, and this is very bipartisan. We don't always hear about the bipartisan things that are going on in Washington, but this one's very bipartisan, and it is this push to get employers to adopt 401k plans. Here in California, it's already become mandated by our state that small businesses will have to have some sort of retirement plan for employees. The rest of the country, it's mostly voluntary. But we're going to blink here in a couple years, and every business will have some sort of retirement plan in place for employees.
And I
They're
think
moving in that direction.
they see it because they know that it's not sustainable. The
Right.
the rate at the rate that we're going, people living longer, and taking on that Social Security means just becoming very stressed. A lot of
Right.
stress on that system itself. So, anyways, I thought I'd just throw that out
No,
there.
that's
but,
good. It's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, he's talking about stress, and now we got to switch to death. So, I mean, as far as the whole life insurance, Sam,
Yeah.
what's the benefits of life insurance and how they help us out?
Yeah, so I really got started in my career selling life insurance. And it's an interesting strategy to take on because they say in the life insurance world, you only buy it if you owe somebody or you love somebody. Because the only way it pays out is if you die. So there's really no personal benefit to you to do it. So what we see is that life insurance is really designed to help protect families if a income creator passes away prematurely, or it helps cover debts. I mean, if you pass away and you got a mortgage in your home, well, that mortgage still has to be paid. So, somebody's going to have to pay that. And that's what life insurance helps to create for people. And it does a number of other things. It's used in estate planning strategies. It's a way to mitigate taxes that are owed in that world. That's usually kind of reserved for mostly more of the higher net worth people out there. But it's a very dependable type of financial tool. And I really think everybody should have it. I mean, there's always going to be the question of, well, how much do I need? And what type of life insurance should I get? But I've always had a passion for having that because, I mean, when I think about it, if I sit with somebody and so I'm sitting with you and your family and I set you up with a Roth IRA and maybe we do some investing on the side or whatever, but if something happens and you pass away, nobody says, hey, thanks that you put together this couple $1,000s in a Roth IRA. And all of that goes away. But if I put I put a life insurance plan together for you, I mean, that saves the entire family. With a relatively small amount of premium, you can create hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars immediately for that surviving family. I mean, that's powerful. So I think, unfortunately, it has gotten a bad rap. There's a lot of people who just kind of sell it, and it's a very commission-driven market, and that's unfortunate. But it shouldn't diminish how valuable it is for somebody to have some insurance because it literally will save lives. It keeps the number one reason. Well, I don't know if it's the number one. It's one of the top reasons for home foreclosure in the country is the death of an income-producing spouse. So especially if if there's a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home parent, if there's a number of kids, if you like everybody, you got car debt and credit card debt and mortgage debt. I mean, my gosh, this is such a basic that people need to have.
I know. I mean, being Catholic, the Knights of Columbus is one of the biggest insurance companies, and that was one of the things when we started having children is that as a group they come to us even as soon as you have your baby, and I forgot how a couple of months old, sign them up for the insurance program for the rest of their life, and obviously it's cheap because you don't typically have child tragedy, but it's just that mindset that like you have a child, you get this basic insurance, and then they also sell as an investment. And that was going to be a side question to you: is insurance also still in an investment type atmosphere?
Yes, so you can do it that way. There are what are called cash value style life insurance plans where, I'll make up some numbers here, but let's say you're paying $50 a month into it, and maybe the insurance side of the policy costs, $10. and $40 will go into this little cash value bucket that you can use for later. That's out there. There's a lot of plans that are done that way, and they have different uses for that cash value throughout your life. So it's not just the death benefit that you get to enjoy. As kind of a general rule, I'm not a fan of it because I like things kind of in their order, and most of the life insurance that I do for people is I put together a term insurance, which is a non-cash value style of life insurance where you're just like car insurance, you're paying for protection. Every month you pay in this stated premium, and there's a promise by the insurance company that if you kick the bucket, there's going to be some big death benefit that goes to whoever your beneficiary is. It's just straightforward, very easy to understand, and that probably 90% of the policies I put together for people are that. But in certain circumstances, you can do a cash value. But personally, I like separating my investments over here and my insurance over here. So,
And to that point, Paul, we hear about Silicon Valley Bank, right, for example, and
Yeah.
how they had this run on the bank and other banks also going down, but FDIC insures them up to $250,000 per individual account, right? So how does that differ from like a cash value in insurance and life insurance? Because I understand that life insurance also has this savings, so to speak, right? Like a cash value. So has there been a run on that, and do they have monies to cover? I'm assuming they do, but assuming that all these claims came into play at one time,
Yeah.
how does the insurance company differ from the FDIC? Because in a sense, they're both insurances
Yeah.
being promised to be paid by these institutions. But in the banking, it's fractional reserves, meaning that
Yeah.
you only keep 10% of all deposits that you have. So if I deposit $10, then that means you only have to keep $1. I mean, is that
Yeah.
similar to what happens in the insurance
Well, I
world,
would
or-
imagine you guys could probably do a couple shows on
Okay.
Silicon Valley
Yeah,
Bank.
for sure.
and chop
This
that
is
up.
we're gonna ride the wave until the next.
Yeah. And just over the last 2 weeks, it's been a topic that financial planners, advisors have been looking at. But almost apples to oranges, really, in the two situations. As you said perfectly, this fractional reserve, this idea that Silicon Valley Bank could take in money and could take in $100 and 90 of it could go into some other investment while 10 sits at the bank. I think that's an eye opener for a lot of people, and it inherently that shows you how poorly capitalized Silicon Valley Bank was. Insurance companies, they don't have that luxury, I guess, of not having money on hand. So they are much more solid financially. You look at all the top insurance carriers out there; a lot of them are double and AAA rated for that reason. So it's a much more solid kind of sub industry of the financial sector, insurance companies, rather than some of these more speculative banks and insurance companies too. We will really turn your viewers off if we go too much into how insurance companies work. But real quickly, insurance companies kind of insure each other through a reinsurance system. And they're real protective of any carriers that go insolvent. It really is an industry that's trying to protect each other because they know that, one going down is a bad look on the insurance industry. Worldwide. So they really are much, I would say, better financially rated than some of these other more speculative banks. So,
All righty. Well, Roy, do you want to take on that number 6 there?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, as far as your the estate planning, and how does that help somebody, obviously with wealth, protected wealth?
Yeah. So estate planning is interesting. It's I know it sounds like something that you would really be reserved for wealthy people, but what an estate is it is your property. It is everything that constitutes kind of the things that you own in this world. And for most of us, I think the thing we probably value most, that's a physical thing, would be like property, our home. Well, that's part of your estate, and you just need a plan for it. So usually this type of planning deals with the end of life. And we live in California, which is a community property state. And so really estate planning strategies kick in after the second person in a relationship dies. So really it's trying to put together a plan so that you can hand down your wealth, your property, to your heirs, whoever you choose, in a very tax efficient way, in a way that you're following the local, state, and federal laws. And you're trying to do it ultimately so you don't cause problems. You know, when people die, you have heightened emotions, you have all kinds of things that are coming into play, even in really good, solid families. You have complications that, you know, when we're talking about property, we're talking about money. They have a way of kind of changing us a little bit, pulling us in a direction or other that isn't necessarily real healthy. So estate planning is really just having some foresight, saying, hey, I know this is going to happen one day. I want to plan today, so we don't have to scramble when the emotions are high. So.
In a side kind of question, you know, would it be smart for somebody with that planning to just, instead of planning after death, to just liquidate assets to their heirs ahead of time?
Yeah, it's the number one thing that we try to keep people to not do.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of problems that you can create by doing that. And it's sad because I think that response is just a natural one. People say, look, we'll just put you on the deed to the house. Talking to their kids or something. No, don't do those things. There's rules against that. There's tax reasons you wouldn't want to do that stuff. Again, another shout out for trying to maybe hire a financial planner, or you can talk to your CPA about these things. I mean, people that are involved in the tax world and attorneys too, like they know some of these things, or they could help guide people to the right person to really sit down and plan with. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons that in our system, like the inheriting property, inheriting wealth, there's a lot of real protective laws there for that second generation. And if the first generation gives away their stuff and doesn't go through the inheritance process, then you're not going to get the benefit from all the protections that are in the inheritance side. So yeah, I would caution against that. In some situations, you can gift wealth to your kids or your grandkids. So some ways it's a good thing, but in other ways it's bad. And again, you just want to get people in front of the right people so they can get the good advice.
So on that, I'll just ask a quick question here, because you're talking estate planning, and to Rohi's point, I want to gift that to my kids or to my heirs, but they typically do that in a form of I'm going to write down on a piece of paper what we call a testament,
Right.
or a will,
Yeah.
right? I mean, is that the right instrument? Because culturally, you know, with a lot of, and I'd like to speak more so with like my family and what I know around my family, that seems to be the ideal thing to do, is just to put it in writing or say, I'm going to gift this to you. And I said, well, but truthfully, at the end, it doesn't really pan out to what you thought it would be, right? Because then you have multiple siblings, you have fights that go on. And I'm not saying within my family, it just happens a lot in a lot of these families where they don't understand, or they're not very informed of how the process works. So what is that device that you would help? I mean, what's the instrument that you would use to be able to plan this out? And I'm assuming you're going to say it's a trust. In many cases, right?
Yeah, in most cases it would be. You know, it's funny right now we're going through kind of a construction project on our home, and there's a lot of tools lying around that are pretty darn useful. But if I were to grab them, I'd probably take my hand off. You know, so there's a lot of tools out there that people can use, but really, to me, the key thing is to find the person who really knows how to make that tool work for your best interest. And that's why when it comes down to legal advice, tax advice, or financial advice, like seek out those professionals. Find a local estate planning attorney, or or find a CPA or an advisor, or ask them who they should be speaking with for their particular problem. So anything I say, I don't want to give like specific legal advice, but in most cases, having a what's called a revocable trust is a very smooth way, a very efficient way of passing down something as easy as a home down to your heirs without going through the probate process. The probate court is kind of the court system designed to take care of our property if there was no plan. Now, the problem I have with probate is that even for small estates, it's expensive and it's time consuming. I had clients who there was a sister, there's an older couple, and they had a sister who had passed away. There was no plan. And my clients had to come down from northern Nevada all the way down to here into the valley and deal with this. And it may still be going on. I mean, it can be very painful, very difficult. And it just shows like when there's a lack of planning, you're left up to whatever the courts are going to decide. And I don't think that's what most people want. So I'm a fan of getting a trust done. We actually perform wills and trusts. We have what we call our trust package, and it comes with a number of different documents. We'll do a revocable trust. It'll do the last will and testament for a couple. And there's a couple other documents in there that are important in that process. But it's basic. It's not complicated. It's just, I think the reason people don't do it is because they don't have the knowledge that they need to seek these things out, and they don't know the person. They don't know who they can really trust. Just explain it to them and tell them why it's important.
Yeah. I will add that, you know, Paul, I've known you for at least 12.
Yeah, too long at this point.
Too long, yeah. And, you know, I've certainly been informed in a lot of the instruments that are laying out there. You call them tools, but you're right, because in many cases there are these tools laying around. A lot of times you feel like you can do it yourself, but there isn't like someone that understands how they are properly used and how they can help you navigate you through your does that make me wealthy I'm wealthy in information, and it puts me in a better place for my family in the future? And that's kind of why I thought it was important for you to at least kind of show viewers as to why, you know, it's hard to come from someone like me or maybe Rohi or Abel, but at least someone in the financial sector or financial management sector to kind of explain the terms and why these tools or instruments are important, especially when you're looking to build wealth and at the same time take care of your family. With that, I know that we talked about the foundation of what wealth management or financial planning. We talked about life insurance, you know, estate planning, investments, and what have you, a trust, for example. I know we can probably go on for a long period of time here, but I think for the sake of the show, we want to thank you, but we also want to know, how would someone interested in receiving financial advice contact you, or how would they reach out to you? And I see that you came on our show, Bolt Wealth Management, so we'd love to put maybe a link down below if somebody's interested with your information. Any other way people can reach you?
Call Jose.
Oh, there you go. Call Jose.
Worked with you for a long time. In fact, I was thinking about how long it's been, and I, your wife Carmina,
Correct,
in real estate, has helped my grandparents sell their home years ago. So it's been a good relationship, and I think it kind of shows the power of like small communities and how people can kind of work together. And what I love is, you know, business, if it's done right, it always turns into good personal relationships. So yeah, it's been good kind of working with you, getting to know you guys for many years. But our website is boltwm.com. So it's boltwealthmanagement.com. We got a really good website. I can't take any credit for it. My partner Brian's got much more of the, you know, web design chops. But on there, you can find how to get in touch with us. You can learn a little bit more about wealth management, financial planning, 401k plans. We even have a page dedicated to that trust process because we just believe it's so incredibly important for people to get these things done. So
awesome. Well, before we sign off, I'll ask my partner here if there's any questions that he may want to ask.
No, I'll keep it good. I do appreciate you coming on. I mean,
Absolutely.
obviously, yeah. I mean, it's from any viewer that we have, I think it would be a good advice to get a hold of you and seek out your help. So,
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks,
Well,
guys.
with that, I think we're going to go ahead and cut this part of the show off, and we'll return back with a couple of comments here from all three. All right.
All right.
thank you.